Hey guys, happy Friday. It's long weekend for some of you guys here in Canada, so happy long weekend. It's a great way to kick that off. And today's class is going to be a really fun one. It's our Chrysanthemum bracelet, and it's really versatile. And you can turn it into earrings if you want. So it can be a bracelet. You can join flowers together and make it a necklace, all kinds of cool stuff you can do. But I went with just a simple one flower bracelet as a way to present the idea. And I'll let you guys take it from there as you always do. You do amazing stuff. And of course, like all of our classes, there's opportunity to personalize and variations. A few I thought of, and I'm sure there's more variations that you guys will come up with as you start to play with the stitch. And always is inspiring to see when you share your creations. So an up close view of it, here's one side. It's reversible. So the way I started making these, I did the version first that had the embellishment, and then I came along and created another version that has no embellishment that stays totally flat. So this gives you a lot of potential. Like, for example, if you had a coin bead you wanted to put in the center, it gives you lots of different ways you can put that together and turn it into other stuff. So I definitely wanted to present both directions that you can take this. And then of course, lots of possibility to change up counts and to change up the type of embellishment you do. So like I said, once you get started, you'll see all these ideas will just pop up for you. So an up close view of them on the mat and some of the supplies, I'll go over that. But here's the non-embellished one. That's the one in red. And what I mean by the embellishment is there's a step 3 in the handout that puts these little 11-Os all around. But if you don't do that step, you'll just have this like really pretty flat version. So totally up to you what you'd like to do there. And it is reversible. So you've got the side where the little chrysanthemum side shows, or this other side where I actually thought this looked really cool too, the way that this side looks. See how it kind of just pops? So it's up to you which side you like more. And just go with it. Also opportunity to embellish the sides. So you can embellish the band if you're doing a bracelet, or even a necklace could be done this way. You can put little 11-Os on the side, 3 or 2. I just did all these different versions. So definitely you can just play, see what you like, what you come up with. And then for the beads and all of the materials, you grab those really quick. You're going to need any color of size 11 seed beads, some size 8 seed beads, and of course some SuperDuos. And then you'll want to use some Wildfire beading thread, and I'm using the 0.06 for that. And you want some size 12 beading needles, and 12s are recommended for this project because of the SuperDuo. Whenever you have to kind of weave around in a SuperDuo bead, it can really, really be helpful to have something like a 12 or something even smaller, just to kind of have that maneuvering ability through the SuperDuo beads. And then at the end, it's kind of optional. You can have any kind of clasps that you want, but the kind of things I usually have handy are some lobster claws and jump rings. And there's the Findings Variety Pack where you can get that. And there's lots of like bead landing packs of different kinds of findings too. There's also, of course, toggles, magnetic clasp, anything you'd like to do for your endings. I think I kept it simple on the samples, and I just did the lobster claws with a chain. And that always works great because you can make them adjustable. So, but the sky's the limit there. We create this and we just leave it open, and then you come along with the jump ring and put whatever you want on it. For tools, you'll probably just need some scissors. And then when you get right to the end, just some way to open and close a jump ring. That'll be all you need. And I got something very cool sent to me that is used for jump rings. So I thought I would check that out and give it a try for the first time today when we get to that spot. And so let's see, I'm gonna just dump out beads real quick. So SuperDuo beads, this is what you'll need first. Get my mat down here a little closer for my hands. And so for the length of thread, I'm doing something with the thread length that makes it easier to work with a really long strand and not have to add thread. You can totally add thread on this design, lots of places to turn, but if you don't want to add thread and you just want to save yourself a step, you can go ahead and cut a whole 90 inches or so That was my estimate based on a 7-inch bracelet. And it gives you enough to finish both bands. So both sides of the flower. And what I mean by that is when you're stitching along, at step 1, you would leave a 40-inch tail on one side, and then you use the other side of that 90 inches to create the flower and create the band on this side. And then when you're done with this, and I'm about to weave this one in here on this sample, you come along over here and you've got this, you weave it up and you start creating your band on the other side with it. So you're really only working with about 50 inches of thread the whole time, because 40 inches of that 90 that you start with is just going to be left at the beginning waiting for later use. And there's my needle. And I forgot my other light. There, it's a little better. Yeah. Okay, so I forgot my size 8s. Those also will be needed. I just grabbed a bunch of bright colors today. The colors I worked with in the handout are the blue, the Magic Line blue, and some blue turquoise, which is a really, really pretty combo, but not as easy to see for what we're doing today against like a black thread. So that's why I pulled out these brights here. So you'll be able to really see what I'm doing. Now let's see what else. I'm going to get my thread ready. Got that. And so it's going to cut those 90 inches. And this is a fast project. I think we'll be able to probably get through it at least twice. So if you have questions or you want to see the variations, we should be able to do that. We've got our extra long class today. All right. So in the handout, what you'll see is, you know, it can be hard to memorize all of these steps. But if you're making it for the first time, just know that everything I'm doing today is in the handout, so you don't have to memorize it. You can just take a look later and catch the counts and everything. But it's got kind of an interesting start, and it's not one that I've shown before, but it's a way to kind of lock your thread in place while you're making your loop. Using the first hole of a SuperDuo bead, I'm going to come through one hole and then jump up to the other one, and that kind of acts like a stop bead and has the added bonus of leaving my tail thread in place for later, in a little easier way to get out. Because if you leave it in the center, it can be really hard to, once everything's built like this, to weave it back up into become the other side of the band. It can be very difficult to get thread out of the center once you've got it all stitched up like that, see? So it's just really handy to have it already launched over here, where I can easily just bring it up into that size 8 and bring it up here and start making my band. So I'm going to show you guys that first. So here's my first SuperDuo bead. And just pick up any hole. It doesn't matter which one you choose first, just choose one. And bring that down and leave a good 40-inch tail on your starting side. So 40 inches over here and the rest of it over here on your working side. And mine isn't quite as long because I'm going to switch to a sample that I worked ahead, so I don't have a full length going, right? I always tangle it with my camera. So I'm working with a shorter one, but just know yours will be a lot longer. Go through one side and now do this jump, right? Just jump up into the other hole of the SuperDuo bead. And then pull tight. And there you go. See how that's kind of like a stop bead? And just kind of helps with making this next step stay put a little bit better. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to pick up a repeat of size 11 and SuperDuo bead. And we're going to do that 5 times. So there's 1. And here's number 2. There's 3. There's number 4. 5. And then you need 1 more size 11 just to finish that off. So you should have something that looks like that. And go ahead and slide that down to meet the SuperDuo that's already on your strand. So we've got a total of 6 SuperDuos, and you should have 6 size 11 beads going there. And this is an opportunity to change your counts. So one of the ways you could vary this is to change the number here. And I believe this stitch will still work even if you did that. So I went back through the first few and I got this ring. And I'm going to go all the way around through it again until I pass the first SuperDuo bead, just to reinforce this so that it's nice and tight. So I'm going to go through the next one here. Don't worry if it's loose on this step, it probably will be. But you can get it to tighten up by reinforcing it like that. And there you go. Now your SuperDuo beads are going to flop around a little bit, but you should have something that looks roughly like that. And I've gone back through my first SuperDuo bead, the one where I started, and it's nice and easy to see because we marked it by having our tail thread there. And once you've done that, you could reinforce it a third time if you wanted to. I think 2 is good for what I've got going here. It will get tighter as we add the next row. I'm going to step up into the open hole here, this side. So it's the one that my tail is coming out. I'm actually going through it in the opposite direction of the exiting tail, basically. So you get this and another opportunity to tighten things up. So now there's thread showing on either side. And my suggestion for this is if you're using a corresponding thread color, like there's a bunch of different Wildfire colors, you can try to match it to your SuperDuo. But also wanted to point out that once you build on the extra parts, it's a lot less visible. Like when you get the extra rows on, you don't really see the one where your threads, see how my thread's there. You can see where my step up was kind of, it's right there. But it gets buried in the other beads. So not really a huge worry that your thread shows there. All right. And so now we're ready to do the next step. So the next step is to put some size 8 seed beads all the way around it. And so you just need 2 size 8 beads. And again, any color you want. I'm using these pink soul gels here. And I'm going to step up and go through the next outer hole of the SuperDuo. So now we're working in the outside holes. I'm just going to go all the way around. Here's the next one. And every step of the way in this design is really pretty. You get a nice little kind of reinforcing pretty flower look with every step you complete. It might give you lots of ideas of ways you can turn these little components into other things. An example of that's coming up right now. So when you get back to the first SuperDuo bead, go ahead and continue through the 8. That might just happen naturally for you anyway. That usually happens for me. Just going through that last SuperDuo. And I continued through the size 8. So here's a component that could become a lot of things, right? If you just look at that easy, simple thing we made, you could adapt this into lots of stuff. All right. So the next thing you'll want to do, and we're on to the next page of the handout. We're going to put a size 11 in between each of those size 8s that we just stitched on. And then we'll be on to the next step. So from where we are right here, we're exiting from one of our size 8 beads. And we're just going to go 11 and then weave through and put another 11 and weave through. And just do that all the way around. And sometimes I can get through all in one swoop and sometimes I can't. But like see right there, I was able to get through some of the SuperDuos, especially like the ones that have this like mat going on. I have a harder time getting straight through those. And I have to kind of weave around a little bit, like more one by one. So just see what happens when you try it, but don't worry if you can't just go all the way through. You might have to go one at a time. Like usually I get through like that and then have to come back and go through the 8. The goal is just to get all of these size 11s, one each in between all of those size 8 pairs there.
Danielle, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you have added that little 11 while you were adding the 8s?
You could. I did it for tension.
Thank you.
But it would work still. I want to make sure and say that it would work. It wouldn't pop like that. It would sit right in the center of them and it would kind of spread the duos out more, if that makes any sense.
It does. Thank you.
You're welcome. Sometimes you see that stitch. Actually, that's a really cool question to give you another idea. But have you guys ever seen people make squares with seed beads? The way they do that is they make a circle first, and then they come along and at 4 points spaced evenly from each other, they'll pop a bead on in between 2 of the beads, and it gives you a point. And that's how to make a square. If you're ever needing to make a square shape or something, or like you want to make a stitch toggle square, we should do that. That sounds really fun. So in the handout, I want to point out one thing here. There is this option to do your own thing. So we finished this, right? We went around, and the next step is to add the embellishment. That's the one that are these bright yellow on top. And if you don't like that, you can totally skip it and go right on to step 4. And if you do that, you'll get this. And so I thought what I would do here is show embellishing first, and then we'll come back, we'll make another one that's just like that, if anyone wants to see that. But it's basically skip a step, right? So the embellishment, you want to be exiting from one of the SuperDuo beads. If you're skipping the embellishment, you want to be exiting from a size 11. So let me show you what I mean on the sample here. The step 4 is putting SuperDuos in between each 11, right? But if you're doing the embellishment, your embellishments are going to exit from the SuperDuo beads. So I'm going to get back out of that 8. Basically, I just came through the SuperDuo right there. And now I'm going to go embellishment hopping from SuperDuo to SuperDuo, working in the outer hole. That's the same hole that we have the pink beads going. And it's tricky, especially with some of the tighter hole beads. For some reason, these like shiny opaques, I have an easier time getting through those than I do on the matte finish one. So just if you're struggling with the matte finish, try it on an opaque first and see how you feel about it. But when I did this one, I really had to kind of encourage it to let me get under there. And I think it's just because getting a needle along this more frictiony surface is just it's a little tighter connection, right? So just think about that when you're working on it. This one should go pretty easy for me because I'm working with these opaques and they're smooth. So you need to pick up for the embellishment. So again, this is step 3 in the handout. You just want to pick up 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 5 of these 11 no beads. And exiting from that top, the outer hole, SuperDuo hole there, we're going to jump over those pink beads and just go through just the SuperDuo. And that's the part that can be a little tricky on some of the designs. So just give yourself some patience if you're working with those and see how it looks. And then if you want to help it do a little point, just grab the center there. But roughly what you'll get is a little loop like that. And it does 2 things. It not only creates this cute embellishment on the top, but it makes the beads on the back pucker upward too. And that's what gives this look where they kind of pop up. See these 8s, they have a little bit of a 3D dimension to them. Whereas over here, they don't. They just blend in. That look is achieved by putting the embellishment on this side. So even if you don't like the way this side looks and you want to wear this side against your wrist, that pop-up was achieved by doing this step. And it's just giving it some height, some 3D. And when we get all the way around, you'll see it really does like make the side, it looks 3D. And we've done something similar to this where we added beads in between here once on one of our other projects back in, gosh, was it 2020 when we did SuperDuo September? I got to go back and look, but we had a class where we did something like that if you like it. So there's 5. I got 5 on there. And again, I'm skipping these, going over to this other side. If you're curious about those classes, I just thought of an easy way to find them. If you go to blog.johnbead.com and you type in the search engine SuperDuo September, I bet it would bring them all up. With the PDFs too. We used to save them all there. I think they're all there right now. Those are some of my favorites still. We just had a really good time with those. Yeah, there you go. So I'm just going around. See, just making the little embellishment go pop right there on the top. It is really pretty. And it kind of looks like a layer inside petals on a flower. As they grow in a flower, the center ones are always a little smaller. So it has a real 3D flower look to it. I'll have to see your guys' designs at the end. This sounds like everyone's working along. This is probably a good one for working along, actually. Almost done with that top part. All right, and so I'm getting back through the first SuperDuo. So this is the one where we started. And if you can, when you get to this spot, if you keep going through your SuperDuo and you get through the size 8, that's on the other side of it, awesome. And if not, don't worry, we'll maneuver through it when we get there. But I got super lucky and I was able to get through the SuperDuo, the 8, and the size 11 in that first round. You see where I'm going here? I'm bringing us right up to where it tells you to be at the end of step 2. And if you'd skipped this embellishment step, it's where you would be. But we added it, and it's this little stack now. We've got this little 3D stack. And we're exiting from the size 11s that we put in between those pink beads. All right, and so next step is we're on to step 4. We're going to put 3 SuperDuo beads in between every one of the 11s. This part is really fun and easy, and it starts to really take shape here. So from this 11, you just want to skip over and go through the 11 in the next pair over here. So like right there. So I'm going to keep going. And you'll get something that looks like that. And this will be a little bit loose, especially again, if you're working with a smoother opaque. So you'll reinforce it at the end. The next set, I'm just going to keep going until I have 3 SuperDuos in between each of these segments. Going through those 11s. This will be really pretty in like a purple and orange for a more fall themed flower. We have those colors. And I'm on the last one now. And there it is, but it's super loose. So I'm going to go around one more time, just really quick. I'm going to just go through each of these beads until I get back to the beginning. And I think this step makes a really big difference for the look of the flower. And again, it'll still work, but you'll have maybe like a loose design where your thread shows just a little bit. And then when you put the band on, the band might pull in the place where it connects and make the flower look oval shaped. That happened to me when I stitched the first couple ones of these, and I was like, why is it doing that? And then I figured out I just needed to do this one step of reinforcing it, and it didn't do that anymore. Something about having 2 passes through it. And where am I? I've got 2 strands going through that one, so I'm good there. All right, so once you've gone through, you've done your reinforcing, you're exiting from that last 11 there. Go ahead and continue through the next SuperDuo. Try to get through just one if you can. And then we're going to do another one of those step ups where we go through the other hole of that same SuperDuo bead, the one you're exiting. So I went in through the hole that's in the inner ring and then stepped up through the outside there. And so now we're on to the step 5 in the handout. And so you'll want to pick up one SuperDuo, or sorry, one size 11 seed bead and go through the next one. And if you're in a different spot than me, just take a quick look at your piece. And the goal is to put one SuperDuo in between each of the 3 pops, but then in between each of the branches of 3, we're going to have 2 of the size 11 seed bead, sorry. So just double check where you are when you do your step up. I did my step up from a bead that was just going to the next set here. So it's 1, but the goal is to have 2, 2, 1, 2, 2, 1 going all the way around. So there's our turn we did. We stepped up and then I added the 1 and now I'm adding 2, 2, 1. We're going to keep doing that all the way around. So we need 2 more. These really are kind of like mandalas. They're just, and you can just keep going and adding and adding. So there's my first set, and I'm going to connect it to the next set by just doing 1.
Danielle, may I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
Winnie had an issue with her very last 11-0, and she's hitting thread. Could you demo how you maneuver your needle when your seed bead is really getting full?
Oh yeah, so maybe it probably happened on that one.
The last 11.
Yeah. Getting through them, well, for starters, working with a size 12, if you're already doing that, then the next thing I would do is just making sure that I just kind of wiggle it around. So you can tell when you're hitting thread because your thread just will not go through. So I just pull the needle back out and then kind of try to push up against the bead. Like, you know how when you're looming, to avoid hitting the thread, they tell you to kind of push up with your needle when you're going through the bead. That sometimes helps too. So just right when you enter the bead, push up on it. See, I'm kind of pushing in that direction. That can help you get through it too. And then let's see, so you've already built, you're pretty far along at this point. So taking it out would be kind of a reset, right? But there is the occasion where you get one that's just a little too tight. Oh, did it go through? Okay, awesome. All right. So was that Sharon? Is it going?
Marguerite got it through.
It was Marguerite. Okay, gotcha.
So I'm just going to see if Winnie will let us know if it went through.
Oh, it was Winnie. It was Winnie. Yeah. That's right. Yeah, let us know, Winnie, if it works. Yeah, because I feel that because you have to go all the way back, and it's one of those ones that we did in step. What was it? Oh my goodness, yeah, we added those in step 2, so like it would mean taking apart 2, back 2 steps. So it's possible, but it just takes a while. Okay, cool.
Yay!
Awesome, yay! Yeah, I know what you're going through because this happens to me a lot. And I'm like, man.
But you know what, Danielle, I'm glad that somebody brought it up today because if we're all working alone later and we have this problem now, I will definitely make my needle go across the top.
Yeah, exactly. I'm hoping that helps. And it doesn't work all the time. And I totally apologize for that. But it's sometimes just part of the seed beading world. I did have one thought that might, I don't know. So if you're having that happen a lot and you're just loving the flower and you want to make a bunch of them, but it's a deterrent, like I don't want to work with you could try size 10. It might work, or try a delicate. I bet a delicate would look really cool. And those tend to have a really generous hole. So when you're doing multiple passes like this, it might. Or, I mean, you could also skip the reinforcing step on these. And because if you've already got that tight of a pass going through here, it might already be tight enough and not need the reinforcing step. So there's a couple ideas there that might help. I think a delicate would be cool too. You know, just on this part. There's two more. And then one. All right, and that's pretty much the flower. So there's one side, and there's the other side. So our embellished side, and then our kind of like 3D side. And there's like a side view. So there's the flower, and that's pretty much the whole steps for that part. So now it's just, well, hey, what does this become? What can we do with this now? And there's lots of stuff. There's lots of things. There's the bracelet, which I'm going to show you how to do. But you could also put a loop and a jump ring and make it an earring. So many ideas, things you could do there. Let's skip to the next one. So for the next part, to attach the SuperDuos to make a band, all you got to do is connect. I actually took a section where branches of 3 were coming together where there's a single seed bead, and I just linked them like that. And that was kind of neat. And then that's another place where if you wanted to, you could leave out these 2 SuperDuos and just add 4 size 11s, and you would have a seed bead loop to hook a jump ring to and make it into something. I'm going to do the band just because that's what's, you know, the original design, but just I wanted to share that you can take this different places if you want to. And so all you got to do is take a look at where you're exiting. So from here, I'm already exiting from, let's see, I am at a juncture. So I want to get over here. And I'll show you guys again on the printout what I'm doing, but I want to get over to exit from one of the places where I've got 2 of the size 11s, and these, see, here's a set of 3 right here, and here's a set of 3 right here. And I want to join it right here, like that. And I just made that up. So, I mean, if it's something you like better that you can try, absolutely, totally try it. I just found that looked good to my eye. So but you're not stuck with this. This is just the way that I joined it. And there's so many other ways you could do it. So again, I'm making sure that I'm exiting from a set of 2 where there's a 1 next to it. So I can go around and back through that other set of 2. And so here's what that looks like. Exiting from right here. I'm going to pick up a seed bead, and then 2 SuperDuos and another of my size 11 seed beads right here. And I'm going to jump over, skipping all of these and coming back in the opposite direction the first of the 11s on that side, and then continue through all of those if you can. And you should get a join that looks like that. And I thought that was a kind of good looking, clean join there. It's also, if you wanted to go crazy and make this bigger, a way you could make it bigger. And so just for those of you out there that are already thinking about how you're going to adapt this, one way you could do it is putting one of these on here and then put one every spot. So here, here, and there, and there, and there. So you'd have all that around, and then you could join stuff in between them. And you don't want to play with that, like try different things. You could just keep going out. How big could you make this flower? I don't know, probably pretty big. So all I'm doing here is I'm reinforcing. I'm going back through that loop that we made. Because this is a band of a bracelet, so it's gonna see some pull. And I just want to give it another little bit of strength there. And I'm having an easy time today getting through these beads. I can only say that it's just luck. Sometimes it doesn't always work out, but if you're having a hard time, just like, again, just pushing up on those beads, just like your lumen, just pushing up on it helps. Get my tail to get out of the way there. Keep going through this next one. Oh yay, I do have a little tight spot there. So I can show you guys me trying to get their tight spot. This is the first SuperDuo we did our step up. So it's really, step one is I'm just gonna go through one bead at a time. That helps. And I think this is my tight size 11. So just pushing up on it. And then I didn't hit any thread. So it's gonna get a little tight, but I made it. There we go. And I think this one's a little easier. So continuing through. Okay, so when you get to this spot, I'm exiting from the center of one of these. Keep going through the next one, but don't go through the size 11. Just exit from the SuperDuo if you can, and step up through the next hole in that SuperDuo. So now we're ready to carry on with making the band. And it's really easy. It's basically just a single column herringbone with SuperDuo. I picked up 2 and I went through the open hole in the next one. And then check out the side. On the side, you've got the open hole of that last SuperDuo you added. And you can jump up through that. And that's the band. I'm gonna do a few more and then show some variation and then also show how to back weave it to make it stronger. So for the design that's in the handout, what we did, we just kept going all the way up and then did this loop through. And then you want to come all the way back down. And it puts a reinforcing stitch on the other side. Because as we go up, you'll notice we are skipping every other side. So see how it's connected here. And then I'm going to step up through this one. But you see it skips this connection here. And then on this side, it's skipping, it's going to skip this one. That'll happen all the way up. So we come back down to kind of recapture the missing side. Do a few more. Here's, if you wanted to embellish it, you pick up a couple beads and then go do the step up, right? There's a 2 embellishment. Here's my next 2. Here's 3 embellishment. So there's 3 size 11s. And so that's optional if you like that. And I did 3 different versions that all kind of look like that. So There's this one with no embellishment and some black thread on a bead where it doesn't show for a really more minimalistic look. And that's just gorgeous right there. Like I've made bracelets that are just this, like not the flower, but just all the way around, just like that, with the connection just like that at the end. And those are nice, fun, cool look. Here's one with 3 going up both sides. And then this one has just 2. They all look neat. It just depends what you like. And I'm sure you could also put other types of beads on the side. Like what about a drop? Drops would be cool, like little mini drops. Just whatever you've got. 15s, size 15s. But no matter which method you choose, you'll still want to go back and reinforce it for strength. So let's go ahead and let's do a loop here. I'm caught on my flower, sorry. There we go. So let's pretend this was much longer and I got to this side and I was ready to put my clasp on. So I'll take 1, 2, 3, 4 of these beads, size 11 again, and just connect this top part. If you're using a clasp that doesn't open, like a jump ring isn't available for it, you do want to put on your clasp at this step. If it's one, like for example, at Michael's, they have those really cool toggles, but they're sealed on the top like a bead. You could put that on here in place of the 2 center beads. That's one thing you could try experimenting with. But once you've got that, you'll want to reinforce this loop 1 time. Easy to do. When you come down here, see how this one's exiting from this open side? Go ahead and go through the one below it and continue through both of those SuperDuo beads. So through this one and the next one there. And then turn and go down through the next 2 here. And now you're in position to come up here. Just go ahead and overlap that thread that's already there. Pull through, and we can reinforce that top. And you can do that twice, or if you want to do it 3 times, that's great. I really only did it twice on mine, and they all seem pretty strong. So 2 times should do it. And if you're embellishing, you'll at least be able to cover thread on one side. I didn't really know, I tried to do embellishing on the way up and on the way down, meaning you'd have embellishing in between, but there wasn't room to fit it. But there might be if you only did 1 bead or 2 beads. But you'll see what I mean as we travel back down. So now I want to get back here from here. So to do that, we just go kind of the way we came. So just keep weaving down. And from here, you're going to step up and go through those 2. So see, I'm going through that hole there. And so each way you're kind of just doing this up and down motion. And now I have threads locking every position all the way down. It's screamingly loud with the black thread on the turquoise, but it wouldn't stand out as badly on another, like on a matched color or with your little seed bead embellishment. You won't see it as much. But see how much stronger that's getting? See, it's a little bit loose and wonky here, but down over here, it's nice solid band. It's really good. Uses a lot of thread. That's why the 90 inches. I'm gonna keep going this way. Traveling down and back up. So as everyone see, we're kind of doing a V shape. And then when you get to this last spot, and you're right here, you got to go back into the work somehow. And it is going to be a little tight getting through it, but go ahead and come down and go through the next bead here, just the next SuperDuo. And continue through. From here, you're where you need to be to go back through the work. And so avoiding this connection area as best you can. Also something to note is if you think this might, if you already have really tight beads, you remember how we reinforced this one time on our way up? You could stop there and not reinforce it and do this with the knowledge that you're coming back down. You could reinforce it now. So that's another thing to think about if you're just really struggling with tight beads, or going up to some size 10s, or last but not least, trying some delicas. But for the most part, it worked out for me. I'm going to just show a quick weave in, and then from there, we can cover almost anything we want from there. But to weave in, all I did was I started going through a few beads. And the cool thing about SuperDuos is when you make a turn through them, it locks in your stitches really nicely. So here, I'm just going to go through a few more of these. And I'm going to turn and come up to this one. Keep going. Maybe turn and come back through this one. Let's see if I can get through that 11 one more time. Through my 8, and I would just trim it right there. That's 3 turns. That seems pretty solid to me. Okay, and so let's see, we're about 10 minutes to the hour. We usually give everybody a little break at the hour. But so something to think about is I can cover this again. Maybe I'll show the version that doesn't have the embellishment, and we can cover all those connections again. But I also still need to show you guys, well, how do I get from where my tail is here? Because remember, we left that really long tail. I do want to show you how to get that tail in position to do your other side. So those are the things we have coming up. But let's see, we're at 12. Why don't we do our break now? If everyone's okay with that, since it's a good stopping point in case anyone's getting tired. Yeah. So I don't know, Carmi, 5, what do we usually do? 5? I forget. Is it 5 or 10? It's 5. Okay, Sharon's saying 5.
5 is good. 5 is good, Danielle.
Okay, so I'm gonna grab some water myself, and you guys go ahead and I'll see you in 5. And Carmi, anything you saw pop up in chat that I missed?
Yes, definitely. I wanted to let you know, Kim asked if you would show how you started adding the 2 SuperDuos to start the bracelet portion. And I knew you would be going over to the other side anyhow. And then you'll definitely, if you wouldn't mind, just go through that a little slower.
Yeah, that's definitely one to cover a few times. I think we can show it twice more. I'll show it here. And then, we'll make another one, and we'll show it there too.
Sharon, I want to ask your question, but I'm not sure I understand it. Danielle might, so I'm just going to read it to her. Danielle, would it be solid after coming back down the band since it's turning?
Oh, the weaving in?
Yes.
Yeah. It would be. I mean, definitely it's not going to come undone. The reason I brought it into the work a little bit is just so the tail wouldn't be sticking out, because I do think it might work its way out a little bit. Just down here somewhere. That said, I'm not totally sure. I mean, you could always just go back up maybe a few times. Just
Sharon said that's it. That was Sharon's question. And the second question I'll ask you while everyone's just taking a quick break is, at the very, very beginning, you said that people had the option of adding more beads to start. Would that result in a much bigger flower? So is that your option, say, to start with 7 SuperDuos or 8 SuperDuos at the very, very beginning?
I believe it would work. Yeah, I can't think of any reason why it wouldn't. You just have a bigger flower. because the counts are the same. They're symmetrical. So it would be, yeah. I mean, at some point it might get kind of floppy, but it would still work. We can try it too.
And then yeah. Pat said, if you did that, what would you do? Because obviously there would be a larger hole.
Yeah, the center, I would put a candy bead in it, an 8mm candy bead. And that would look amazing.
Oh God, maybe even a crystal.
Yeah, now working with a candy bead, I would start different. Because they have 2 holes, right? It's interesting. Yeah. The only reason, another question I saw pop up, the only reason I would want to have an odd number is for a center point, but an even number would work. Odd number, I don't think there's really, for example, if you started with 5, you might not have another spot over here that mirrors. You know what I mean? Like, so that only makes a difference if you want to have it as a bracelet. That's a good one. Marguerite brought up a good question there. It does matter how many you start with if you want it to have a band, right? But if you're just doing an earring, no worries, because you just need one side to hook, right? Unless you're doing like a dangle, then yeah. In my mind, I feel like it would work. I would need to try it. But now I'm thinking about the candy beads in the center because it would change the way I start it. I think it would still work even if you just did it this way and then stitched it in at the end, but there's an even faster way where you would take advantage of those 2 holes going top and bottom. Well, hey, maybe we'll do that and try it with twin or something. It's really fun. Let's see, I'm gonna start getting more thread ready, or actually start with this one. Yeah, Marguerite, you can skip your embellishment and just reinforce it without. The only thing is you might see your thread. So for example, on your way up, your thread's going through here, and on your way back, the thread's going through the other side. So it would look like, I guess it would kind of look like this, right? But yeah, if you reinforced this in here, there'd be a little jump of thread going from there to there, and you'd see it underneath the embellishment. But keeping in mind on the way back, you're going through a different direction. And it's skipping where you embellished it. We'll do that. We'll do a fully embellished one on the second side, the second one we do, and I'll show that. You got me thinking now.
Danielle, I think you're good.
Good, okay. So I just want to show really quick, if you're here like I am and your thread of course will be much longer than mine. I just was working with something a little shorter, but you need to get over here with your tail thread, which in your case will be about 40 inches of tail thread, and you'll be exiting randomly from one of these like SuperDuos over here. So no matter where you are, it's easier to work on the non-embellished side, and mine's sticking out on the top of the embellished side. So all I'm going to do is just taking a close look at where I am in stitch. I'm coming out of that SuperDuo. I'm just going to go down through here just to get myself on the other side. I'm not changing, bead exits or anything or going through any beads. I'm just bringing it down so I have a little more viz. You can see where I am, where I'm going. And so from here, I don't really want to go through my 11s again because they're just so tight. So it's okay for me to go through my 8s. And then I try to get through the SuperDuo here. And one thought I had is before I created my outer layer, I could have brought my tail thread to the opposite side. Could have saved myself a little time, but if you're where I am, I'm going to just keep going and I'm going to turn through one of the centers and just weave around this way. And in the handout, I just kind of glossed over it and I said, yeah, I just weave over there. And it is a lengthy process to get there. The shortest route is through the center, so that's what I'm doing. Okay, and so just taking a look at where I am here. Our goal is to exit from right here. Either side would do. So I'm just going to think it through in my head. Where do I need to be to get there? I can go this way and through here and up. I could continue through these next two and then go up here and weave up that way too. I think that's what I'll do. So I went through my next two SuperDuos to get myself going in the right direction. I'm going to turn up this way. And when I make the next one, I definitely think that starting to move my tail where I want it to be before I create the rest of it, that might be a wise move. Okay. So my thread's getting a little short, but I'm getting to where I need to be. Okay, I'm gonna turn up here. And unfortunately, this will be different for everybody because it depends where you left off and which path you chose. But the goal is to get to exiting from one of those beads that is on. So you'll have this kind of like one point here, you run through the center, and there's the one point there. And again, we're going to hug these two beads together like that. And so weaving to get there can be kind of a pain, but that's, again, that's something that if I had thought about it at the beginning, I could have moved my tail thread over there before I had all this extra stuff going on. So let's make sure I do that on the next one. But so let's start the band because that was something that was a question. So just making sure you're exiting from, again, one of these size 11s that's in a pair here. And that's adjacent to a center point. And then you've got your other step 3 over here with these two. So just a little bit of the geometry of the stitch just to kind of take a look at it. And it's also, if you're trying to do that on the first side, just there's a sketch here too that shows kind of what the side looks like, where you've got your 1, 2, 3s, and then the center there. And so all we're doing is we're just kind of joining those in a circle. And the new bead that we're adding now. So we're going to pick up 1 11 and then 2 SuperDuos, 1 more 11. So again, that's 11, 2 SuperDuos and an 11. Get those on there. And so from here, you want to jump over to this direction over here. So we're just hugging those 2 beads on the side. I'm just going to pull that down. And I'll pull that out and show it again if it helps. But that's the goal there, is to kind of make that little circle shape. But that's not the only way you could, you could make that connection lots of different ways. And so again, you just want to be exiting from one of those 11s there. Get my needle back on. And here's the 11, 2 SuperDuos and 11. And it's coming down through here. And so my thread is super short on this sample. And I could weave in new thread. It would be really tight getting it going through here. But I think what I'll do is I'll start another one that will show this an additional time on that sample. But I can do the first one, part of the stitch there. There we go. And come up through this one. And when you get to this part, we just reinforced it once. Go through just the SuperDuo bead at this spot right here, because we're going to do a step up into the next SuperDuo. Or sorry, the next hole of the same SuperDuo. So there's that step up right there. So you're kind of in the center now of the two. You pick up 2 more. And then just go through the open hole of the next one. And so here we are, just building the band on the other side. Side 1 and there's side 2. And a teeny little short thread. Okay, so I'm gonna cut some more thread. And where are we at? We're doing good on time. So I'm gonna just show the non-embellished version since it's faster. And that way we just get to cover everything 2 times so everybody gets to see all those steps twice. And again, for a full length bracelet, you would want about 90 inches of the Wildfire 0.006. I'm working with a size 12 here. And I'm going to use a SuperDuo bead as a stop bead. And my stop bead is going to be with a 40-inch tail. So I just come up through the other hole of that bead, just like that. And when you pull tight, you get a nice little locked in place kind of stop bead there. So that helps me a lot when I'm working to have that little extra reinforcement. So the next thing you want to do, and again, it's in the handout, but we're on step 1, is we just want to build this first ring. And so to do that, all we're going to do is string an 11 and a duo 5 times and then put on an extra 11. And of course, this is where we could change it up. If you wanted to put different counts, I do think it would work. It would change the look a lot, but it would work. So there's 4, 5, and then after 5, 1 extra size 11. And then here's our starter, right? You want to come along and go back through it in the opposite direction of that exiting thread to form a ring. It's a tight one. There we go. And so there's my ring. And it's a super loose one. So I like to go back through it again. And then when you get back to the first SuperDuo, and you'll know which one that is because it's got your tail thread marking it, you want to step up through that SuperDuo. So here's my working thread, the one with my needle on it. I'm going to turn and go through that open hole there of the starter SuperDuo. And oops, it jumped. And when you pull tight, you'll have your tail thread and working thread exiting from that same bead in opposite directions. So you can tighten it up and make it a nice perfect circle there. And handy. And then from here, we're going to put a size 8 seed bead in between each of the SuperDuos in the outer ring. And we had a really good question earlier about putting the 11 on at this step. And so the reason I didn't do that is because of the popping feature. Here's what it looks like if you just kind of like string it like that. I mean, it kind of works, but you see how it just blends into the center of the bead instead of pops up from the top of it. Like if I can show it like that. So it's a difference between having that or having that. And it will widen the gap between your SuperDuo beads. So it would actually still work. You'd have a different look. So I never say don't try it. Of course, always try it because I think you just never know. You will come up with something and then you'll love it. So always try your idea if you like that. The reason I did it this way is just because I wanted it to have that little pop-up thing. And almost the other side. All right. And so again, I want to just point out where we are. We just finished up this step right here, which is the step 1. And then our next step is to add the 11s in between. So that's our step 2. So I went ahead and just jumped right into that size 8 bead when I was stitching through my last SuperDuo. So I can just really quickly throw my 8s in between each one. There we go. And if you're lucky, you can get through all beads, you know, all 3 of the ones you need to go through. 8, SuperDuo 8. It works out for me maybe like half the time. I don't know. It's just, it depends on the bead, I think. But you do want to make sure you made it through all of them. Okay, and so I'm going to skip our embellishing step for this one. So I'm going to go ahead and continue through not just the next 8 and SuperDuo, but I'm going to go through the 8 and SuperDuo after that, or sorry, 8 and size 11 after that. So you see my thread is exiting here. And I also promised myself that I wouldn't leave myself in the situation where my tail is crazy. So I'm going to grab, let's see, I'm going to grab another needle really quick. And I'm going to bring that tail up. And then I'm going to be thanking myself later for that. There we go. Worried about that. That wasn't going to go through. Okay. Oops. Needles everywhere off camera. There we go. So for now, the only thing I really want to do is just bring this tail thread up through my 11. And I'm just going to leave it, just leave it aside for now. And here's the handout. Just going to bring that back over and show what we did. Add 11s in between each of those. Here's the embellishment step. We're going to skip that, where we added the 5 and went through the next SuperDuo. Skipping that. We're going to go right over here, jump right into putting those SuperDuos in each of the 11s. So I'm already where I need to be. So just going to get 3 SuperDuo beads and skip to my next 11 and keep going. So this is going to make a flat flower. It's not going to be 3D like our last one. But I actually really like it. I like the flat one. So here's the next one. And then through this one, and this is the one where my tail thread's hanging out. Just gonna pull that tail thread over there. Through here. And then I'm gonna reinforce that. Make another trip around. If you feel like your stitches are super tight or you're having trouble getting through your 11s and you want to skip this step, go ahead and try it. I was really torn about it. So I was worried that again, I said I was getting those oval flowers, you know, where once I put the band on, it was stretching it a little bit. The reinforcing for me helped that. But if you wanted to try without and see what happens, you could try that too. And I'm almost back to the start here. Got one more to go through. And now I'm through that first 11 there. Before I go any further, I've still got my needle on my tail. And again, I'm gonna just do myself a favor and I'm gonna bring it through. And I'm gonna keep going. So check this out. I'm gonna bring it to exit from the spot where I know I'm gonna do my other side of the band. Thank you, past me from future me. Here we go. Okay, so I got that one going. And we now need to step up to get out here. So let me show you on the diagrams. We just did that. We added all 3 of those and then we reinforced it around in extra time. And so the next thing you want to do is do the 2, 2, 1, 2, 2, 1. And the place you want to put the 1 is in between each of these sets of 3, all the way around. So just take a look at where you are, because you might be in a different spot than me, but recognizing your 3s. So these are our 3s right here, these ones. So I know my 1 single S11s are going to go in between each of these, right? In here. And my 2s are going to go here around. So from wherever you are, get through a SuperDuo, whichever one's next. Step up from that SuperDuo to the open outside hole. And then again, assessing where you are. For me, I'm here, so I know I'm going to do a 1 because I'm in between my sets of 3. So there's my 1. And so I want to do 2, 2, 1, 2, 2, 1 until I get to the other side. And there's my 1. And it's just coming along. Really different look when you didn't do the embellishment. I feel like it's really pretty this way and the other way. So I'm torn about which one I like more. I like that this one is faster to get your flower done. And I think there's also some advantage to it being flat for certain designs. Okay, there's 1, 2. And we're back to beginning. Okay. So there's our little flower, and it's really cool. It came out nice. It's like a flat version. Let me bring the other one up so you can see the difference. So embellished, not embellished, the reverse side. And the only difference there is this stays totally flat. And this one, you've got a pop-up of the pink on this side and the yellow on that side. They're both really cute. And then while I'm here, I want to show one more thing. And this was actually the prototype. I didn't stick with it because it was really hard to, you know, when something is not repeatable and you're kind of worried you can't do it twice. Well, this was an example of that. Here's one where I went crazy with the tension and I made it really tight. And notice that instead of a 2, it's got 3. And then I didn't put a bead in the center here. So you see how we did 2, 2, 1, 2, 2, 1. On this one, I did 3, nothing, 3, 3, nothing, 3, 3, nothing, all the way around. And it made it a bowl. And it made my embellishment really tuck into the center. And on the back, it looks like that. And that was the original. That was the very first one I tried. The tension was a problem. I actually had to go around this 3 times to make it pop like that. And I didn't feel like it was like friendly to create, but if you have the patience for it and you like it, it just means 3 passes here. And you can get that to work and maybe even try some tents and you'll really get some like tight look. But so yeah, our next step here is to put the band on it. And so I'm gonna keep going here. Just figuring out where I am. And so there's 3 and 3. And the way that I did the bands was I put the bands like this, on this side coming out that side, and that side coming out from this side. So in this case, I want to weave through my next SuperDuo and the next size 11. Just getting where I need to be from there. All right, and so you'll need a size 11 and then 2 of the, let's see, SuperDuos, and then 1 more 11. And again, we're gonna just jump over the next 11 SuperDuo, 11 SuperDuo, and 11, and then going in the opposite direction. So here's the exit point and the entrance point there. So we're kind of hugging those 2 kind of ends of those little connectors, right? And then you get that. And so I'm going to try something different on this one just to see if it is easier to get back through those 11s. But if you want to skip the reinforcing step, what I did on the last couple is I went through all the beads again to reinforce this circle. But then as I was coming back on the return pass for the band, I realized we could do it then. And then it saves us a pass through the beads when it might start getting really tight. So let's skip it. The downer is, you see how this thing is coming loose on me? It's gonna do that to you when you're creating your band. So I guess it's kind of like choosing which one is least annoying, trying to get through tight beads or trying to like hold this in place while you create. And let's try it that way. I think it'll work. So just going through the duo here. Yeah, that's another one. Yeah, Sharon, you could totally do that. And when you get back down here, like for example, if you were here, you could just pick up this thread bridge right here, come underneath it, grab it, and then step back up through your bead. And that would totally work. Yeah, so that was a great idea from Sharon. That was a thread bridge grab. I grabbed this thread bridge here. Sorry, this one. And that would help. That will definitely help because these are a a connection point, you want it to be strong, but then getting through it's hard. So I'm always torn about that. Let's do a fully embellished one so I can answer the other question that we had about coming back and reinforcing it if the embellishment gets in the way or not. So here's the two, but before I pick them up, oh, sorry, I gotta put the two on here. So there's the next two in my band, right? And now I'm gonna pick up three. Let's do a three and see. So that's really pretty. I like the embellishment a lot. There's three more. I'm gonna do maybe, let's say 4 sets or until I run out of beads here. And then we'll come back down. Yeah, this is a really pretty combination. I like this color and I like it with 3. I feel like 3 is the way to go with the jump there. Okay, so just pretending that's super long. Let's grab our 4 beads, connect the top. And then I'm gonna do a jump here. So it's hard to see, but the next bead down to jump through is my embellishment's covering it up, but it's just this one right here. Right? It's because we want to lock those two together. I know that can be hard to see, so I'm just going to linger there for a second. So we exited from here, and we just jumped down to the open hole of the next SuperDuo bead right below it. And if the embellishment wasn't there, it'd be visible. You'd be able to see it really well, but the embellishment covers it up, so it can be tricky. And when you pull tight, you will see the thread just right there. And that'll be true all the way down, but it doesn't really detract from it. So now I'm going to come down through the next two, going in, you're always kind of going in a V shape. And I'm going to come back up through the side here. So the question I think I had was, could you just, instead of having to go through all these to come up here, could you just go straight through? And yeah, you can. I have a feeling it's going to be really visible, the thread. So let's see. So it kind of looks like that. I mean, it's not too, it doesn't really jump out that much. But you see what it looks like here and what it looks like here. I could live with it. I'm just not, and on one side it's less visible than the other. I'm just not sure. I think what I would do, just my own preference, not because you need to, but I think I would just go through those 3 again. So from here, what I would do is I would go through my 3 embellished beads. And then do my reinforcing right there. And I like the way that pops. Like once you get through it again, like it makes everything just kind of look a little tighter. And so from here, all you're going to do is just travel back down, and, you know, in that roundabout way where you kind of have to go in a V shape. So there's going up. We did this once before, so it's a little tight, but that's all right. And so now what I'm doing is I'm jumping from the outside hole here to the outside hole of that one. We're just going to keep going just like that all the way down. It just has the added complication of avoiding my tangles of thread on the embellishment because they like to hook onto it. And they kind of block the hole that you need to go through. And then we're almost to the bottom. I want to try that idea from Sharon of using a thread bridge to turn and get back up here. So I'm down here now. I didn't reinforce this. So, I mean, for this design, if I was going to finish it, I probably would go ahead and go through this another time. You would want to come through this way, right? And go back here and loop around. But Sharon's idea that she shared earlier was to do a thread bridge jump and then use this to do your weaving in. So you don't have to go back inside the flower. And that's a totally great idea. So to do that, what I would do is, so take a look at the side of this SuperDuo and you see how we're exiting from this hole right here, the top one. Go ahead and just go under right here, the thread here. So I'm picking up the thread that's on under my 11. I'm going to try to keep it so that it does this, right? It hugs that 11. And then I would just come right back up to that same hole. That's the one we're exiting. And what you'll see happen on the side of the bead here is that you'll have those two strands traveling. See those two strands there? They're traveling back and they're hugging the thread that's coming out of these guys right here. And that's handy because now we did not have to go anywhere through the flower. And we're back up here. And this is a great place to weave in. And you don't have to do that a couple more times. And if you really wanted to, you can knot. You can do 1/2-inch knots in between. Or you can just keep going through. No knots. I know, Sharon. I agree. Because I think you can see it. But I do know friends who would totally put a knot right here and not worry about it and not sweat it. And they'll probably have a better day than me. So I'm like, I don't know. I'm torn. I'm always torn. But yeah, so I would actually just keep going and just weave in a little bit and trim it. Yeah, what do you guys think? So we're doing so good on time. If there's questions, there's lots of time to answer them. If you guys are feeling like you got it, you can let me know that too. Or I can even share some other like, yeah, let's put a clasp on it. So super easy to do. I'll grab a few, where did I put that one over here? There's a longer one. I started this one earlier to show and I realized my colors it's just too hard to see what's going on there with the threads. So I switched to the bright turquoise, but let's put a clasp on this one. And I'm gonna find a 4mm jump ring. You can use any size jump ring you want. And I just got this brand new pack. I go through these clasps so fast. And I always have lots of jump rings left, but no clasps. So I refill my findings pack with those. Some tools really quick. And so the jump rings, I'm assuming all you guys have seen this before, but I'll just go through it really quick. Is they all have this little seam. And you just want to open in a lateral motion, you just want to open it so that you don't lose that circle shape that it's got. So if you hold it with one tool and use another. But I also have a new tool that I was going to just try out. Just going to put that on there. there's one way to do it. And then you just laterally close that. It'll just hang out there. If you have like oval jump rings, those are good because the thread won't come through. And I know they have those at Michael's. I've seen them. And then like a little pack. But I was gonna try this tool here. Do I need 2 of these, or I only need 1, right? To work this? Let me get a jump ring out. I'm gonna get a big jump ring. I have a feeling I can just use my fingers on them. So let's see what happens. So I've got my other one here.
Danielle, I sent you both because I had one.
You have them? Do I need to, or does it work with
Nope,
just one?
Just one.
Just one. Okay. So let's see here. Guys, I've never seen this before. I'm just like clueless. All right. So it's a ring. It has these notches in it, and you can just fit the jump ring in there like that. Right? And then just push on it. And then just push it closed. That's pretty cool. That worked.
Sharon said there's different size slots for different size jump rings.
I was seeing that. This looks like a 22 gauge here. It's like an 18 gauge or 16 gauge, and then maybe a 24 here. Yeah. Yeah, that's neat. Thank you. I have not been up to the outlet, so that's really cool.
Sharon, what is the official name of that ring? I think it is a jump ring tool.
I was like, we could call it a jump ring.
Yeah, jump ring.
I think, you know what, now I'm really feeling dumb because I saw one of these in the John Bead's findings packs. And I thought it was just like maybe accidentally something put in there by the factory. I didn't know what it was. It's one of these. It was an AGP, like an antique brass. Yeah, I'm so clueless. Thank you guys. I did not know about that cool tool. And it's easier to take on if you're going to go on a plane. Like you don't want to take all your pliers. You could just bring that. There you go. Yeah, thanks, Sharon. And Valerie and Pat. All right. So I don't know, Carmen, what do you think? Should I show? I mean, we could try different counts at the beginning of a flower. I could show next week's classes in more detail, or I don't know how everybody's feeling on a Friday today.
Sorry, Danielle. I've been watching the sidebar. There haven't been too many questions. I think people have been following along, so you're good. The only question that I didn't ask you was if you wanted to make the band thicker, did you have any ideas for making it wider as opposed to 2 SuperDuos wide?
Yeah, let's think about that. So yeah, you could. I have some thread over here.
And also, will you tell us the name of your pink seed beads? Yes,
these are the pink chalk. And they're the ones with the number 593 at the end. Really pretty color. And here's the one we were just working on. And we've got our, oh yeah, thanks, Christine. Yeah, the other colors were just the regular opaque turquoise. That's the one that has like a 013 on it. And then the yellow size 11s were 834. Golden yellow, so it's called. But so let's think, making it thicker. Well, let's go through over here. This might not work, but then again, it might. So it's 2, 1, 2 and 1. So instead of putting 2, I added an extra set like that. And I want to see what happens if I just go through all these. That kind of works. So you get something that looks like that. And so all I did was I changed the jump out point from being in the center of these two to being on this edge over here. And keep going. Exit back from over there. I think the needle I picked up from my random needle pile might have been a size 10. So this is going to be a little tougher getting through those beads there. Okay. So what you'll have is, I just reinforced it. You'll have this little crown. And do your step up just like before. And then we'll get 2. Go through 2. 2. And go through 1. And let me think about this for a second. It's going to fan out. I don't want it to fan out. Let's try something different. What if we did 1? I don't know. I'm totally just making this up as I go. Oh, I want to see what happens if I did 2 here. Come through here. Not loving it, but there might be a way we can get a 2-column design going here. Open to ideas out there. Actually, I mean, kind of just like peyote stitch up, like.
Danielle, if this was a class where we assigned homework, this would be the homework assignment, because everyone's thinking, Cindy's thinking, what if you start with 3? Sharon's recommending 1, 2, 1. So I wanted to let you know that Marguerite was saying this would look brilliant if it was just all flowers as the bracelet also.
That would be really cool. I would like that. I think that would look really neat. Yeah, so I've got something going there that could become whiter. I don't know if you guys see it, but it's odd count. We don't like odd count. Odd counts, I mean, it's okay, but it takes a while to kind of, I would play with this and I would make it work into like a double column herringbone like that, which would mean you would, like, remember we actually did a class on that. Come to think of it, we did a double column herringbone, or I think it had 3 columns, where we did SuperDuos in a row. And you would just need to make it like that, and that would work too.
That's great, Danielle. Thank you. Now, I think you should tempt them with the upcoming class.
Yeah, let's do that. So let's see. So next week is I did these kind of like ball shapes that have a wooden bead inside. And then I turned it into an apple. But you can make this into anything. And because there's a bead in there, you could string these on beading wire and make a whole bracelet like this. So what I'm going to focus on in class is teaching that how to do this stitch, and it's versatile. So you can put different size wooden bead inside of it. It doesn't have to be wood bead, but keeping it light was my goal for earrings. But for example, I think there's an 8mm bead in here and a 6mm bead in that one. Notice they're a little different. I didn't want them to be exact. They work, both of them work. And then these are size 10 to make just a little leaf. All that is just a really easy ladder stitch with a little brick and then a picot on top. So all beginner techniques just put together in kind of, you know, a new way to make it look hard when it's really not. So that's next week on Friday at 2 p.m. Central. That's the one, the little apple earrings. That's cool for back to school gifts for teachers and stuff. And then on the 12th, I think is the day, we're doing the textile loom. And so this one is, this is really cool. It's intricate. The pattern is on the website. It's included, but I'm going to have a bunch of just, you know, ready to go samples going. So one to show starting the loom, one to show taking it off the loom, and then one to show doing the weaving in for this part. And when I did this one, I actually used Wildfire as my warps, and then I used Nymo as my weft. I might work with Nymo 100% on the class one, just so I don't have to demo with two different threads, but you guys are experienced and you've probably done looming before, so just do what you like with your own thread decision. Like you could use either. So, and that's done on the jewel loom, but you could use whichever loom you got. And then after, we're taking a break because I'm going to be at Bead Fest. I'm going to Bead Fest for, I'll be there on the evening of the 19th. I'm teaching a make and take for us for Beads of Courage. So I'll be there at the Bead Fest in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So that's why we're skipping a week for classes. But coming back on the 26th, we're going to do Peyote with a Twist. And this one was one that I just got really excited about and into. And you guys told me a couple classes ago that you were into it. So I'm like, okay, we're doing it. So here it is. This is the snake necklace. And it just looks like a desert sand snake. And I tried to make little kind of snake looking cobra ends on it. So yeah, we'll have fun with that. This is a kind of advanced one, but be brave because it was a lot less scary than I thought when I first started it. Thanks, Kim. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to go. It's my first time going to Bead Fest. So I haven't been to a bead show since before 2020. So yeah, 2020 was my last Tucson. So I'm excited to get to do something like that and get to see all the pretty beads and be out there.
And people.
Oh my God, people, yeah.
Danielle, you'll probably talk to people like you're still on Zoom.
I know, it's like
they'll actually be right in front of you.
I know, and it's true, yeah.
Danielle, I wanted to point out a couple people did notice your ring from the class today.
Yeah. This was our class that we did a couple weeks ago.
So that was nice to see.
Yeah, that was a fun one. I liked that class. That was a really fun class. If you guys want to catch it, I can post a link somewhere. I think we had a link going.
The links should be up. And the class is up too.
Yeah, and so as always, if you guys have questions, you can find me. I'm at Danielle Wickes Jewelry on Insta and DanielleWickesJewelry.com. So that way you can find me. And then if you have ideas, like I'm always looking for ideas. We're coming up on 100 classes. So, I'm going to recycle some stuff and coming up with some things like respins of things, but anything you got that you wanted to learn or you saw or just kind of sparks your interest. I'm always super interested to hear that from you guys. So yeah, and I want to say thank you for being here and wish you a happy Friday and take any extra questions if anybody's got them. Looks like you guys are all fast to work. Oh, I see Cindy's got her bracelet done. Oh my gosh, that is so fast. Let me switch to my gallery view so I can see. Oh, neat. I like your colors too, Cindy. Those are great colors. Oh, I see Lauren's got hers. Oh, hi, Marguerite. I see you're holding something up, but I couldn't read it. I just see there's your bracelet. That's so pretty. And I see Kylie's bracelet. Oh, wow. That's so cool, guys. It makes me happy to see it. The pattern worked. Awesome. Oh, I see Pat's. Oh, cool. You've got a good start going there, Pat. I like it. I like the gold. I'm seeing a pop of gold on that. Oh, neat. Oh, and Pat's already got the blue one done. Of course. Oh, wow. And you've got another one started. That looks like it has extra counts, maybe. No? Is it? Oh, it does. Oh, okay. I'll see if you guys are looking at Pat's screen, she's already got one with more counts in it. That's neat. Oh, thanks, Felicia. Yeah, that's cool to see that. How awesome. So yeah, that totally works. All right, you guys. Well, hey, I will let you go and enjoy your Friday. And I will see you guys next week for our apples earrings class next Friday. And of course, reach out if you need anything. Great. Happy beading. Have a great weekend, guys.